Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Goodnight Flagstaff. This is Kate Rose. Thank you for tuning into our community story time. This is about my 5th time reading, and it's always a pleasure to reach out to all of you in the community. So, you can find a new chapter at 8 p.m. every weekday on the Literary Center's YouTube channel or Crater Radio, local online radio station. It's aired each weeknight on Crater Radio about 7:30, just before the new chapter airs. And you can also listen to all the previous recordings on YouTube. So now we're reading The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkein. You can check it out and read along with us at home. It's available at the library. So you can also email us if you'd like to become one of the readers. The email is goodnightflagstaff@gmail.com. So welcome to come join our team. So last time we read together, Elrond asked Gandalf to tell his part of the story of the ring, revealing the extent of Sauron's influence over so many. Even Gandalf had been lulled by the words of Saruman the Wise, thinking he was still a friend, and we learned about Gollum and how he came into possession of the ring. Of the search for Gollum, his capture, and his escape, we also learned, and the inscription of the ring and what it meant. And we learned of Ragadas and the Brown finding Gandalf and convincing him to go to Saruman the Wise. But what happened when Gandalf came to meet Saruman? And now we will find out. They took me and set me alone on the pinnacle of Orthanc, in the place where Saruman was accustomed to watch the stars. There is no distance save by a narrow stair of many thousand steps, and the valley below seems far away. I looked on it and saw that whereas it had once been green and fair, it was now filled with pits and forges. Wolves and orcs were housed in Isengard, where Saruman was mustering a great force on his own account, in rivalry of Sauron, and not in his service yet. Over all his works a dark smoke hung and wrapped itself about the sides of Orthanc. I stood alone on an island in the clouds, and I had no chance of escape, and my days were bitter. I was pierced with cold, and I had but little room in which to pace to and fro, brooding on the coming of the riders of the north. That night had indeed arisen, I felt assured, apart from the words of Saruman, which might be lies. Long ere I came to Isengard, I had heard tidings by the way that could not be mistaken. Fear was ever in my heart for my friends in the Shire, but still I had some hope. I hoped that Frodo had set forth at once, as my letter had urged, and that he had reached Rivendell before the deadly pursuit began. And both my fear and my hope proved ill-founded, for my hope was founded on a fat man in Bree, and my fear was founded on the cunning of Sauron. But fat men who sell ale have many calls to answer, and the power of Sauron is still less than fear makes it. But in the circle of Isengard, trapped and alone, it was not easy to think that the hunters before whom all have fled or fallen would falter in the Shire far away. "I saw you," cried Frodo. "You were walking backwards and forwards. The moon shone on your hair." Gandalf paused, astonished, and looked at him. It was only a dream," said Frodo, "but it suddenly came back to me. I had quite forgotten it. It came some time ago, after I left the Shire, I think." "And it was late in coming," said Gandalf, "as you will see. I was in an evil plight, and those who know me will agree that I have seldom been in such need, and do not bear such misfortune well. Gandalf the Grey, caught like a fly in a spider's treacherous web, yet even the most subtle spiders may leave a weak thread." At first I feared, as Saruman no doubt intended, that Rangadas had also fallen. Yet I had caught no hint of anything wrong in his voice or in his eye at our meeting. If I had, I should never have gone to Isengard, or I should have gone more warily. So Saruman guessed, and he had concealed his mind and deceived his messenger. It would have been useless in any case to try and win over the honest Radagast treachery. He sought me in good faith, and so persuaded me. That was the undoing of Saruman's plot, for Radagast knew no reason why he should not do as I asked, and he rode away towards Mirkwood, where he had many friends of old. And the eagles of the mountains went far and wide, and they saw many things, the gathering of wolves, and the mustering of orcs, and the 9 riders going hither and thither in the lands. And they heard news of the escape of Gollum, and they sent a messenger to bring these tidings to me. So it was that when summer waned, there came a night of moon, and Gwaihir the Wind Lord, swiftest of the great eagles, came unlooked for to Orthanach, and he found me standing on the pinnacle. Then I spoke to him, and he bore me away. Before Saruman was aware, I was far from Isengard ere the wolves and orcs issued from the gate to pursue me. "How far can you bear me?" I said to Gwaihir. "Many leagues," he said, "but not to the ends of the earth. I was sent to bear tidings, not burdens." "Then I must have a steed on land," I said, "and a steed surprisingly swift, for I have never had such a need of haste before." "Then I'll bear you ere Doris, where the Lord of Rowan sits in his halls," he said, "for that's not very far off." And I was glad, for in the Riddermark of Rowan the Rimmer, the horse lords dwell, and there are no horses like those that are bred in the great vale between the misty mountains and the white. "Are the men of Rowan still to be trusted, do you think?" I said to Gwaihir, "for the treason of Saruman has shaken my faith." They pay a tribute of horses," he answered, "and send many yearly to Mordor, or so it's said, but they are not yet under the yoke. But if Saruman's become evil, as you say, then their doom cannot be long delayed." He set me down in the land of Rowan ere dawn, and now I have lengthened my tale over long. The rest must be brief. In Rohan I found evil already at work. The lies of Saruman, and the king of the land would not listen to my warnings, and he bade me take a horse and be gone, and I chose one much to my liking, but little to his. I took the best horse in his land, and I have never seen the like of him." "He must be a noble beast indeed," said Aragorn, "and it grieves me more than many tidings that might seem worse to learn that Sauron levies such tribute. It was not so when last I was in that land." "Yeah, nor is it now, I will swear," said Boromir, "and it is a lie that comes from the enemy. I know the men of Rowan, true and valiant, are allies dwelling still in the lands that we gave them long ago." "Shadowr Mor lies in distant lands," answered Aragorn. "Sauron has fallen under it. Rohan is beset. Who knows what you'll find there if you ever return?" "Not this at the least," said Boromir. "They will buy their lives with horses. They love their horses next to their kin, and not without reason, for the horses of Riddermark come from the fields of the north, far from the shadow, and their race and that of their masters is descended from the free days of old." "True indeed," said Gandalf, "and there is one among them that might have been foaled in the morning of the world. The horses of the 9 cannot vie with him. Tireless, swift as the flowing wind, Shadow Fox they call him. By day his coat glistens like silver, and by night it is like a shade, and he passes unseen. Light is his footfall, Never before had any man mounted him, but I took him and I tamed him, and so speedily he bore me that I reached the shrine where Frodo was on the Barrow Downs, though I set out from Rohan only when he set out from Hobbiton. But fear grew in me as I rode. Ever as I came north I heard tidings of the riders, and though I gained on them day by day, they were ever before me. They had divided their forces, I learned. Some remained on the eastern borders, not far from the Greenway, and some invaded the Shire from the south. I came to Hobbiton, and Frodo had gone, but I had words with old Gamgee. Many words, and few to the point. He had much to say about the shortcomings of the new owners of Bag End. "I can't abide changes," he said. "Not all my time of life, and at least not changes for the worse." "Changes for the worst," he repeated many times. "Worst is a bad word," I said to him, "and I hope you will not live to see it." But amidst this talk I gathered at last that Frodo had left Hobbiton less than a week before, and that a black horseman had come to the hill the same evening. Then I rode on in fear. I came to Buckland, and I found it in an uproar, as busy as a hive of ants that had been stirred with a stick. I came to the house of Crickhollow, and it was broken open and empty, but on the threshold there lay a cloak that had been Frodo's. And for a while hope left me, and I did not wait to gather news. Or I might have been comforted, but I rode on the trail of the riders. It was hard to follow, for it went many ways, and I was at a loss. But it seemed to me that one or two had ridden towards Bree, and that way I went, for I thought of words that might be said to the innkeeper. Butterbur, they call him, I thought. If this delay was his fault, I will melt all the butter in him. I'll roast that old fool over a slow fire. He expected no less, and when he saw my face, he fell down flat and began to melt on the spot. "Huh! What did you do to him?" cried Frodo in alarm. "He was really very kind to us and did all that he could." Gandalf laughed. "Don't be afraid. I didn't bite, I barked very little, so overjoyed was I by the news that I got out of him, when he stopped quaking, that I embraced the old fellow. How it had happened I could not then guess, but I learned that you had been in Bree the night before, and had gone off that morning with Strider." "Strider!" I cried, shouting for joy. "Yes, sir. I am afraid so, sir," said Butterbur, mistaking me. "He got at them in spite of all I could do, and they took up with him. They behaved very queer all the time, and they were here in willful, you might say." "Ass, fool, thrice worthy and beloved Barleyman," I said. "It's the best news I've had since midsummer. It's worth a piece of gold at least. May your beer be laid under an enchantment of surpassing excellence for 7 years," I said. "Now I can take a night's rest, the first since I've forgotten when." So I stayed there that night, wondering much what had become of the riders, for only of two had there yet been any news in Bree, it seemed. But in the night we heard more. 5 at least came from the west, and they threw down the gates and passed through Bree like a howling wind, and the Bree folk are still shivering and expecting the end of the world. I got up before dawn and went after them. I do not know, but it seems clear to me that this is what happened. Their captain remained in secret away south of Bree, while 2 rode ahead through the village, and 4 more invaded the Shire. But when these were foiled in Bree and Crickhollow, they returned to their captain with tidings, and so left the road unguarded for a while, except by their spies. The captain then sent some eastward straight across the country, and he himself with the rest rode along the road in great wrath. I galloped to Westerville like a gale, and I reached it before sundown on my second day from Bree, and they were there before me. They drew away from me, for they felt the coming of my anger, and they dare not face it while the sun was in the sky. But they closed round at night, and I was besieged on the hilltop, and the old ring of Aman, I was hard put to it indeed. Such light and flame cannot have been seen on Weathertop since the war beacons of old. At sunrise I escaped, and I fled towards the north. I could not hope to do more. It was impossible to find you, Frodo, in the wilderness, and it would have been folly to try with the 9 at my heels. So I had to trust Aragorn. But I hope to draw some of them off, and yet reach Rivendell ahead of you and send out help. 4 riders indeed followed me, but they turned back after a while and made for the ford, it seems. That helped a little, for there were only 5, not 9, when your camp was attacked. I reached here at last by a long, hard road up the Horwell and through the Etten Moors and down from the north. It took me nearly 15 days from Weathertop, for I could not ride among the rocks of the troll fellows, and Shadowfox departed. I sent him back to his master, but a great friendship has grown between us, and if I have need, he will come at my call. But so it was that I came to Rivendell only 2 days before the ring, and news of its peril had already been brought here, which proved well indeed. And that, Frodo, is the end of my account. May Elrond the others forgive the length of it, but such a thing has not happened before, and Gandalf broke tryst and did not come when he promised. An account of the ring-bearer of so strange an event was required, I think. Well, the tale is now told from first to last, and here we are, and here is the ring. But we have not yet come any nearer to our purpose. What shall we do with it? There was a silence. At last, Elrond spoke again. This is grievous news concerning Saruman, he said, for we trusted him, and he is deep in all our counsels. It is perilous to study too deeply the arts of the enemy for good or for ill, but such falls and betrayals, alas, have happened before. Of the tales that we have heard this day, the tale of Frodo was most strange to me. I have known few hobbits out of Bilbo here, and it seems to me that he is perhaps not so alone and singular as I had thought him. The world has changed much since I last was on the westward roads. The Barrow-wights we know by many names, and the old forest many tales have been told, and that now remains is but an outlier of the northern march. Time was when a squirrel could go from tree to tree, from what is now the Shire to Dunland west of Isengard. In those lands I journeyed once, and many things wild and strange I knew. But I had forgotten Bombadil. If indeed this is still the same that walked the woods and hills long ago, and even then was older than the old, that was not then his name. Eorwyn, Benedar we called him, oldest and fatherless. But many another name has since been given by other folk, Form by the dwarfs, Orid by the Northmen, and other names besides. He is a strange creature, but maybe I should have summoned him to our council. He would not have come, said Gandalf. Could we not still send messages to him and obtain his help? Asked Arister. It seems he has a power even over the ring. No, I should not put it so, said Gandalf. Say rather that the ring has no power over him. He is his own master, but he cannot alter the ring itself, nor break its power over others. And now he's withdrawn into a little land within bounds that he has set, though none can see them, waiting perhaps for a change of days, and he will not step beyond them. But within these bounds nothing seems to dismay him, said Arister. Would he not take the ring and keep it there, forever harmless? No, said Gandalf. Not willingly. He might do so if all the free folk of the world begged him, but he would not understand the need. And if he were given the ring, he would soon forget it, or most likely throw it away. Such things have no hold on his mind. He would be a most unsafe guardian, and that alone is answer enough. any case, said Glorfindel, to send the ring to him would only postpone the day of evil. He is far away. He could not take it back unguessed, unmarked by any spy, and even if we could, soon or late the Lord of Rings would learn of its hiding place and would bend all its power towards it. Could that power be defied by Bombadil alone? I think not. I think that in the end, if all else is conquered, Bombadil will fall. Last as he was first, and then night will come. I know little of Erwin, save the name, said Galdor. But Glorfindel, I think, is right. Power to defy our enemy is not in him, unless such power is in the earth itself. And yet we shall see Sauron can torture and destroy the very hills. What power still remains lies in us, here in Imladris, and at the havens. But they have the strength. Have we here the strength to withstand the enemy, the coming of Sauron at last, when all else is overthrown? I have not the strength, said Oren. Neither have they. Then, if the ring cannot be kept for him ever by strength, said Glorfindel, two things only remain in us to attempt, to send it over the sea or to destroy it. But Gandalf has revealed to us that we cannot destroy it by any craft that we here possess, said Elrond. And they who dwell beyond the sea would not receive it for good or ill. It belongs to Middle-earth. It is for us, who still dwell here, to deal with it. Then, said Glorfindel, let us cast it into the depths, and so make the lies of Sauron come true. For it is clear now that even the council, his feet were already on a crooked path. He knew that the ring was not lost forever, but wished us to think so, for he began to lust for it himself. Yet oft it lies truth in the hidden, in the sea it would be safe. Not safe forever, said Gandalf. There are many things in the deep waters, and sea and land may change. It is not our part here to take thought only for a season, or for a few lives of men, or for a passing act of the world. We should seek a final end of this menace, even if we do not hope to make one. And that we shall not find on the roads of the sea, said Galdor. If the return to Erwin be thought too dangerous, then flight to the sea is now fraught with gravest peril. My heart tells me that Sauron will expect us to take the western way when he learns what has befallen. He soon will. The nine have been unhorsed indeed, and that is but a respite ere they find new steeds and swifter. Only the waning might of Gondor now stands between him and a march in power along the coasts in the north, and if he comes assailing the white towers in the havens, hereafter the elves may have no escape from the lengthening shadows of Middle-earth. Long yet that will that march be delayed, said Boromir. Gondor reigns, you say, but Gondor stands, and even the end of his strength will still be very strong. And yet its vigilance can no longer keep back the nine, said Gondor. And other roads he might find that Gondor does not guard. Then, said Arister, there are but two courses, as Gandalf has already declared, to hide the ring forever, or to unmake it. But both are beyond our power. Who will read this riddle for us? None here can do so, said Elrond gravely. At least none can foretell what will come to pass if we take this road or that. But it seems to me now clear which is the road we must take. The westward road seems easier. Therefore, it must be shunned. It will be watched. Too often the elves have fled that way. Now, at this last, we must take the hard road, a road unforeseen. There lies our hope, if hope it be. To walk into peril, to Mordor, we must send the ring to the fire. Silence fell again. Frodo, even in that fair house, looking out upon a sunlit valley filled with the noise of clear waters, felt a dead darkness in his heart. Boromir stood, and Frodo looked at him. He was fingering his great horn and frowning. At length he spoke. I did not understand this, he said. Saruman is a traitor, but did he not have a glimpse of wisdom? Why do you speak ever of hiding and destroying? Why should we not think that the great ring has come into our hands to serve us in the very hour of our need? Wielding it to the free lords of the free may surely defeat the enemy. That is what he fears most, I deem. The men of Kandahar are valiant, and they will never submit, but they may be beaten down. Valor needs first strength and then a weapon. Let the ring be your weapon. If it has such power as you say, take it and go forth to victory. Alas, no, said Elrond. We cannot use the ruling ring. That we now know too well. It belongs to Sauron, and it was made by him alone, and is altogether evil. Its strength, Boromir, is too great for anyone to wield at will, save only those who have already a great power of their own. But for them it holds an even deadlier power. The very desire of it corrupts the heart. Consider Saruman. If any of the wise should with this ring overthrow the Lord of Mordor, using his own arts, he would then set himself on Sauron's throne, and yet another Dark Lord would appear. And that is another reason why the ring should be destroyed. As long as it's in the world, it will be a danger, even to the wise. For nothing is evil in the beginning. Even Sauron was not so. I fear to take the ring and to hide it. I will not take the ring to wield it. Nor I, said Gandalf. Boromir looked at them doubtfully, but he bowed his head. So be it, he said. Then in Kandahar we must trust to such weapons as we have. And at least while the wise ones guard the ring, we will fight on. Mayhap the sword that was broken may still stem the tide, if the hand that wields it has inherited not only a heirloom, but the sinews of the kings of men. Who can tell, said Aragorn. But we'll put it to test one day. May the day not be long delayed, said Boromir, for, though I do not ask for aid, we need it. It would comfort us to know that others fought also, with the means they have. And be comforted, said Elrond, for there are other powers in realms that you do not know, and they are hidden from you. Anduin the Great flows past on many shores, ere it comes to Argonath and the gates of Gondor. Still, it might be well for us, said Glokit the dwarf. If all these strings were joined, and the powers of each were used in league, other rings there may be less treacherous, that might be used in our need. The seven are lost to us. If Balin has not found the ring, which was the last, naught has been heard of since they perished in Moria. Indeed, I may now reveal that it was partly in hope to find the ring that Balin went away. Balin will find no ring in Moria, said Gandalf. Thirkut gave it to Thirkut and his son, but now Thirkut is in Thorin. It was taken to torment from Thirkut in the dungeons of Dol-Guldur. I came too late. Ah, alas, cried Glaucon, when will the day come of our revenge? But still, there are the three. What of the three rings of the elves? Very mighty rings, it is said. Do not the elf lords keep them? Yet they too were made by the Dark Lord long ago. Are they idle? I see elf lords here. Will they not say? The elves returned no answer. Did you not hear me, Glaucon? said Anra. The three were not made by Sauron, nor did he ever touch them. But them it is not permitted to speak. So much only in this hour of doubt I may now say. They are not idle, but they were not made as weapons of war or conquest. That is not in their power. Those who made them did not desire strength or dominion or hoarded wealth, but understanding, making, and healing to preserve the things unstained. These things the elves of Middle-earth have in some measure gained, though with sorrow. But all that has been wrought by those the wield of the three will turn to their undoing, and their minds and hearts will become revealed to Sauron if he regains the one It would be better if the three had never been. That is his purpose. Well, what then would happen if the ruling ring were destroyed, as you call it, said Tolkein. We know not for certain, answered Elrond sadly. Some hope that the three rings, which Sauron has never touched, would then become free, and the rulers might heal the hurts of the world that he has wrought. But maybe when the one has gone, the three will fail, and many fair things will fade and be forgotten. That is my belief. Yet all the elves are willing to endure this chance, said Glorfin, if by the power of Sauron may be broken and the fear of his dominion be taken away forever. Yet thus we return once more to destroying the ring, said Arthur, and yet we come no nearer. What strength have we for the finding of the fire in which it's made? That is the path of despair, of folly, I would say, if the long wisdom of Elrond did not forbid me. Despair or folly, said Gandalf. It is not despair, for despair is only for those who see the end beyond all doubt. We do not. It is wisdom to recognize necessity when all other courses have been weighed, though as folly it may appear to those who cling to false hope. Well, let folly be our cloak, a veil before our eyes of the enemy. For he is very wise, and weighs all things to a nicety in the scales of his malice. But the only measure that he knows is desire for power, and so he judges all hearts. Into his heart the thought will enter that any will refuse it, and having the ring we may seek to destroy it. If we seek this, we shall put him out of reckoning. At least for a while, said Elrond. The road must be trod, but it will be very hard, and neither strength nor wisdom will carry us far upon it. This quest must be attempted by the weak, with as much hope as the strong. Yet such soft the course of deeds that move the wheel of the world, small hands do them, because they must. Well, the eyes of the great are elsewhere.
Yeah, very well, Mr. Asrar, said Bilbo suddenly. Say no more, it's plain enough what you're pointing to. Bilbo the silly hobbit started the affair, and Bilbo had better finish it himself. I was very comfortable here in getting into my book. If you want to know, I'm just writing an end for it. I had thought of putting, and he lived happily ever afterwards, to the end of his days. It's a good ending, and none the worse for having been used before. Now I shall have to alter it. It doesn't look like it's coming true, and anyway, there will evidently have to be several more chapters if I live to write them. It's a frightful nuisance. When ought I to start?
Boromir looked in surprise at Bilbo, but the laughter died on his lips when he saw that the others regarded the old hobbit with grave respect. Only Glorfin smiled, but his smile came from old memories.
Of course, my dear Bilbo, said Gandalf, if you had really started this affair, you might be expected to finish it. But you know well enough that starting is too great a claim for any, and that only a small part is played in great deeds by any hero. You need not bow, though the world was meant, and we do not doubt that under jest you are making a valiant offer. But one beyond your strength, Bilbo, you cannot take this back. It is past. If you need advice any longer, I should say that your part is ended, unless as a recorder. Finish your book, leave the ending unaltered. There's still hope for it, but get ready to write a sequel when they come back.
Bilbo laughed. I've never known you to give me pleasant advice before, he said. As all your pleasant advice has been good, I wonder if this advice is not bad. Your unpleasant advice has been good. This would be bad. Still, I don't suppose I have the strength and luck left to deal with the ring. It has grown, and I have not. But tell me, what do you mean by they?
The messengers who were sent with the ring.
Exactly, and who be they? That seems to be what this council has to decide, and what we have to decide. The elves may thrive on speech alone, and dwarfs endure great weariness. But I'm only an old hobbit, and I miss my meal at noon. Can't we think of some names now? Put it off till after dinner?
No one answered. The noon bell rang. Still no one spoke. Frodo glanced at the faces, but they were not turned to him. All the council sat with downcast eyes, as if in deep thought. A great dread fell on him, as if he was awaiting the pronouncement of some doom that they long foreseen and vainly hoped might, after all, never be spoken. An overwhelming longing to rest and remain at peace by Bilbo's side in Rivendell filled all his heart. At last, with an effort, he spoke and wondered. to hear his own words as if some other will was using his small voice. "I'll take the ring," he said, "though I don't know the way." Elrod raised his eyes and looked at him, and Frodo felt his heart pierced by the sudden keenness of the glance. "If I understand all that I've heard," he said, "I think that this task is appointed for you, Frodo, and that if you do not find a way, no one will. This is the hour of the Shire folk, when they arise from their quiet fields to shake the towers and councils of the great. Who of all the wise could have foreseen it? Or if they are wise, why should they expect to know until the hour has struck? But it is a heavy burden, so heavy that none could lay it on another. I do not lay it on you, but if you take it freely, I will say that your choice is right. And though all the mighty elf friends of old, Hutter and Harcleton and Cargan and Beren himself were assembled together, your seat should be among them." "But you won't send him off alone, surely, master?" cried Sam, unable to contain himself any longer, and jumping up from the corner where he had been quietly sitting on the floor. "No, indeed," said Elrond, turning toward him with a smile. "You at least shall go with him. It is hardly possible to separate you from him, even when he is summoned to a secret council and you are not." Sam sat down, blushing and muttering. "Yeah, nice pickle we've landed ourselves in, Mr. Frodo," he said, shaking his head. And that's the end of Book 2, Chapter 2. Please tune in next time. Thank you, and good night, Flagstaff.